What about your dad? He's already disappointed in me for choosing art. This is just one more way I'm not the son he wanted." Adrian's voice was light, but Ethan heard the pain underneath. "I came out to my parents last year. My mom was okay with it, mostly. My dad, he doesn't talk about it. Pretends I never said anything. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'd rather be me and have him disappointed than pretend to be someone I'm not." Adrian kissed Ethan's temple, which is advice you should probably take too when you're ready. They fell asleep in Adrian's bed that night, curled around each other, finally able to be close without fear or pretense. Ethan woke up to sunlight streaming through the window and Adrian's arm around his waist, and for the first time in months, he felt light. "Happy morning," Adrian mumbled against his shoulder. "Morning. We need to study. Finals start tomorrow." "In a minute," Adrian said, pulling him closer. "Right now I just want to exist in the knowledge that I can wake up like this." Ethan turned in his arms, facing him. Adrian's hair was a mess, his eyes still half closed, and Ethan thought he'd never seen anything more beautiful. "I can't believe this is real," Ethan said. "Believe it." Adrian kissed him softly. "This is very real. You're stuck with me now." "Promise, promise." Hashash, Chapter 6. The new normal finals week took on a completely different quality now that they weren't avoiding each other. They studied together, taking breaks to kiss, making dinner together in the common room, falling asleep in each other's arms. Every moment felt stolen, precious, like they were making up for all the time they'd wasted. "Question 14 is wrong," Adrian said, looking over Ethan's practice exam. "No, it's not." "Yes, it is. Look at the logic flow. If X is true, then Y can't also be true." Ethan checked again. Adrian was right. "How are you an art major? Better at my computer science homework than I am." "I pay attention," Adrian said smugly. "Also, you're distracted." "Whose fault is that?" Ethan pulled Adrian closer, kissing his neck. "We should study," Adrian said, even as he tilted his head to give Ethan better access. "Definitely." They did not study. On the last day of finals, they went back to Mario's to celebrate. Their booth in the back was waiting, and as they slid into the familiar seats, Ethan felt a wave of happiness so intense it almost hurt. "What are you thinking about?" Adrian asked. "How lucky I am that I got randomly assigned a room with my soulmate." Adrian's eyes widened. Soulmate. Ethan felt his face heat. Too much. No. Adrian reached across the table, taking his hand. "Not too much. Perfect, actually." They ate their pizza, talked about their plans for winter break. Kadrian was going home for a week, but would be back early. Ethan was staying on campus and made plans for the spring semester. "We should go on actual dates," Adrian said. "Like, leave campus, go into the city, do a couple things." "Couple things," Ethan repeated, smiling at the word. "I like the sound of that. Me too." Adrian's expression turned more serious. Are we going to be public about this? Or keep it private?" Ethan had been thinking about this. "I want to be public. I'm tired of hiding, but I'm also scared." "Is that stupid?" "It's not stupid. It's honest." Adrian squeezed his hand. "We can take it slow. Tell people when we're ready. There's no rush." "I want to tell Marcus," Ethan said, referring to his friend from programming class. "And you should tell whoever you want to tell." "I already told Ryan from my drawing class," Adrian admitted. "Yesterday, actually, I couldn't keep it in. He was excited for me. For us. Yeah. I said it was obvious we were into each other." "Apparently everyone could see it except us," Ethan laughed. "Of course they could." Winter break was harder than either of them expected. Adrian left for home on December 20th, and the room felt empty without him. They texted constantly, called every night, but it wasn't the same as being together. "I miss you," Adrian said on Christmas Eve. "Is that pathetic? We've only been together for 2 weeks?" "If it's pathetic, then I'm pathetic too," Ethan said, "because I miss you constantly. 5 more days, then I'm back, counting the hours." Adrian came back on December 29th, and Ethan was waiting at the bus stop. When Adrian stepped off the bus, he dropped his bag and pulled Ethan into a kiss right there in front of everyone. "Missed you," he breathed against Ethan's lips. "Missed you more." They spent New Year's Eve on the roof of their dorm building, technically not allowed. But Adrian had found a way to prop the access door. They brought blankets and hot chocolate, sitting close together, watching the fireworks from the city light up the sky. "New Year's resolution?" Adrian said as midnight approached. "Be honest about who I am. Be brave. Be with you openly and proudly." "That's 3 resolutions," Ethan pointed out. "Fine. My resolution is you. Everything else follows from that." At midnight, they kissed as fireworks exploded above them. And Ethan felt like his life was finally beginning. Chapter 7. Coming out spring semester started with new classes, new routines, and a decision. They held hands walking across campus, kissed in the dining hall, were openly affectionate in their dorm. Some people stared, but most didn't care. The ones who did matter, their friends, were supportive. Marcus cornered Ethan after programming class in early January. "Dude, are you and Adrian together?" Ethan's heart pounded. "We are." Marcus grinned. "Finally. I've been watching you pine after him since October. Rachel owes me $20. You bet on us? Everyone bet on you? It was painful watching you to dance around each other." Despite his nerves, Ethan laughed. "Good to know our suffering was entertaining. Seriously, though, I'm happy for you. Adrian's great. You guys are good together." That became the common response. Most people were happy for them, excited even. Few people were uncomfortable, but they were easy enough to avoid. And slowly, Ethan realized that being open about who he was didn't end the world. If anything, it made his world bigger, fuller. But there was still one conversation he needed to have. In February, he finally called his parents. His hands were shaking as he dialed, Adrian sitting beside him for support. "Ethan, how's school?" his mom answered. "Good, really good." "Mom, is Dad there? I need to talk to both of you about something." His father got on the line, and Ethan took a deep breath. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to just listen until I'm done." When they agreed, he continued, "I'm gay. I've known for years, but I was scared to tell you. I'm dating someone, his name is Adrian. He's my roommate, and he's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm not asking for permission or approval. I'm just telling you who I am." The silence that followed felt eternal. "Ethan," his mother said finally, her voice careful. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." More silence. Then his father spoke. "This is a lot to process, I know. But you're our son. That doesn't change." Ethan felt tears spring to his eyes. "Really, really?" his mother said, and now she was crying too. "It might take us some time to fully understand, but we love you." That's not conditional. It wasn't perfect. They were confused. They had questions. They needed time. But they didn't reject him. They didn't stop loving him. And for now, that was enough. When he hung up, Adrian pulled him into a hug, and Ethan let himself cry. Relief and fear and happiness all mixed together. "I'm proud of you," Adrian whispered. "That was incredibly brave. I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." Adrian's relationship with his father remained strained, but he seemed more at peace with it now. "I can't control how." "He feels," Adrian said one night as they lay in bed together. They'd pushed their beds together in January, creating one larger bed. "But I can control how I respond. I'm done trying to be someone I'm not to make him happy." "What changed?" Ethan asked. "You, us, seeing you be brave with your parents, made me realize I need to be brave too. Not by coming out again, he already knows, but by refusing to be ashamed. By living my life openly." "I love you," Ethan said. It was the first time he'd said it out loud. Adrian went very still. "What did you say, I love you?" "I've probably loved you since that first morning run when you complained the entire time but kept showing up anyway." "I just didn't realize it." Adrian kissed him deeply, his hands framing Ethan's face. "I love you too. So much it scares me sometimes. Yeah. You're it for me, Ethan. I know we're young, and people will say we don't know what we're talking about, but I know. You're it." Ethan's chest felt too full, like his heart might burst. "You're it for me too." Chapter 8. The summer they spent the summer on campus, both taking classes and working part-time jobs. Their room became a sanctuary, walls covered in Adrian's artwork, Ethan's desk piled with coding projects, their combined bed a nest of blankets and pillows. They learned each other's bodies, slowly and carefully, no rushing. Adrian was patient with Ethan's inexperience, and Ethan learned what made Adrian gasp, what made him smile, what made him pull Ethan closer and whisper his name like a prayer. "I never thought I could have this," Ethan said one night, lying in Adrian's arms, both of them catching their breath. "Have what? This kind of happiness? This kind of love? I thought I'd spend my life hiding who I was." "Never again," Adrian said firmly. "We're done hiding." They went into the city on weekends, holding hands down busy streets, kissing in parks, being openly, obviously in love. They went to art galleries, where Adrian would explain paintings to Ethan, who pretended to understand but mostly just loved watching Adrian's face light up. They went to arcade bars where Ethan destroyed Adrian at every game, and Adrian would demand rematches until they were both laughing too hard to play. One weekend in July, they went to a pride parade. It was the first time either of them had been, and the experience was overwhelming in the best way. Surrounded by thousands of people celebrating love in all its forms, wearing rainbow face paint that Adrian had carefully applied to both their faces, Ethan felt something shift inside him. "This is what it feels like," he said to Adrian over the music and cheering. What feels like? Freedom. Being exactly who I am, without apologizing for it." Adrian kissed him right there in the middle of the crowd, and people around them cheered. When they broke apart, both smiling, a photographer asked if he could take their picture. For the community blog, he explained, "Two people in love, that's what pride is all about." They agreed, and the photographer snapped a photo of them, foreheads pressed together, smiling at each other like no one else existed. Ethan would frame that photo later, keep it on his desk through all the years that followed. In August, they moved to a new room bigger this time, with space for Adrian to set up a proper art station and for Ethan to have a desk that didn't wobble. But more importantly, they'd requested it together. No more random roommate assignment. They were choosing each other officially, openly. "Can you believe it's been almost a year since we met?" Adrian asked as they unpacked boxes. "Best year of my life," Ethan said. "Same." Adrian crossed the room, wrapping his arms around Ethan from behind. "And it just keeps getting better. We're going to have to tell people eventually, you know?" "About how we got together? You mean about how we were both idiots who spent months pining instead of just talking to each other?" "Exactly that." Adrian laughed, spinning Ethan around to face him. "It's a good story. Messy and complicated and real. Just like us." "I wouldn't change any of it," Ethan said. "Even the hard parts." "They brought us here," Sap Adrian teased. But he was smiling as he said it. "Your sap," Ethan corrected. "My sap," Adrian agreed, and kissed him. Hashash, Chapter 9. Sophomore year. Sophomore year brought new challenges. Ethan's course load increased, and Adrian was working on his portfolio for a competitive gallery showing. They spent long nights working side by side, occasionally breaking for food or kisses or just holding each other when the stress got too high. "I can't get this color right," Adrian said one night in October, frustrated. He'd been working on the same painting for hours. Ethan came up behind him, looking at the canvas. It was a portrait of Ethan, actually, something Adrian had been working on for weeks. In the painting, Ethan was reading by the window, soft afternoon light illuminating his face. It was beautiful and intimate and captured a moment Adrian had sketched months ago. "It looks perfect to me," Ethan said. "The shadows are wrong. The light isn't falling right." "Adrian, it's incredible. You're being too hard on yourself." Adrian set down his brush, turning to face Ethan. "What if I'm not good enough? What if I apply to this gallery show and they reject me, and my dad was right all along?" "Your dad isn't right. You're talented, Adrian. Insanely talented. And even if this particular show doesn't work out, there will be others. You have to say that. You're my boyfriend. I'm saying it because it's true," Ethan said firmly. "I believed in you before I was your boyfriend, and I believe in you now. You're going to do amazing things." Adrian pulled him close, burying his face in Ethan's neck. "I don't know what I did to deserve you. You were yourself. That was enough." Adrian submitted his portfolio in November, The waiting period was agonizing 6 weeks before they'd hear back. During that time, Ethan did everything he could to keep Adrian distracted. They went ice skating, even though neither of them was any good at it, and they spent more time falling than skating. They had a Lord of the Rings marathon, complete with homemade popcorn and Adrian's commentary on the cinematography. They studied together at coffee shops, went on long walks when the stress got too high, and held each other through the anxiety. The acceptance letter came weeks before Christmas break. Ethan was in class when Adrian called, his voice shaking. I got in what? The gallery show. They accepted my portfolio. 3 of my pieces are going to be displayed, including the one of you. Ethan's heart soared. Adrian, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you. I can't believe it. I keep reading the letter over and over. They said my work shows remarkable emotional depth and technical skill. They want to feature me as one of their emerging artists. Because you are an emerging artist, you're brilliant. I need to call my mom. And then can we celebrate? Tonight? Absolutely. I'm taking you to the nicest restaurant near campus. Ethan, you don't have to. I want to. This is huge. You deserve to celebrate. That night, they dressed up Adrian in a button-down that made his eyes even brighter. Ethan, in slacks and a sweater, went to an Italian restaurant downtown. They ordered wine with their fake IDs that Marcus's older brother had made, toasted to Adrian's success, and talked about the future. My mom cried when I told her, Adrian said. Happy tears. She said she's going to come to the opening. Adrian's smile dimmed slightly. I didn't call him. I know he won't come, and I don't want to give him another opportunity to diminish this. Ethan reached across the table, taking Adrian's hand. His loss. Everyone who loves you will be there. Will your parents come? I already asked. They said they wouldn't miss it. Adrian's eyes went wide. Really? Really? They want to meet you properly. They're trying, Adrian. It's not perfect, but they're trying. That's all we can ask for, Adrian said softly. The gallery opening was in January, and Ethan had never seen Adrian so nervous. They stood outside the gallery, Adrian in a suit that Ethan had helped him pick out, hands shaking. What if no one likes my work? Adrian asked. Everyone's going to love it. But even if they don't, which they will, I'm proud of you. Your mom's proud of you. That's what matters. Adrian took a deep breath. Okay, let's do this. Inside, the gallery was already filling with people. Adrian's 3 pieces were displayed prominently: the portrait of Ethan, a landscape of their campus at sunrise, and an abstract piece that somehow captured the feeling of falling in love. Ethan stood in front of the portrait of himself. Seeing it properly displayed for the first time, Adrian had titled it Morning Light, and underneath was a small placard, a portrait of love in quiet moments. That's you, someone said beside him. Ethan turned to find an older woman in elegant clothes. Are you the subject? I am, Ethan admitted. He must love you very much, she said, studying the painting. You can see it in every brushstroke. The care, the attention to detail. This isn't just a portrait. It's a love letter. Ethan's throat tightened. He's pretty special. So are you, I think. To inspire this kind of art, she moved on, and Ethan found Adrian across the room, talking nervously to a couple interested in his landscape piece. Their eyes met, and Adrian smiled, that bright, genuine smile that Ethan had fallen in love with over a year ago. Ethan's parents arrived an hour into the event. His mother hugged him, then insisted on meeting Adrian immediately. You must be Adrian, she said, and to Ethan's surprise, she pulled Adrian into a hug. Your work is beautiful. Truly beautiful. Thank you, Mrs. Cooper, Adrian said, looking a bit overwhelmed. Ethan's father shook Adrian's hand. The portrait of Ethan, it's remarkable. You captured something essential about him. It's easy to paint, Adrian said, glancing at Ethan. He has an interesting face. Very expressive. They talked for a while, and Ethan watched his parents make a genuine effort to connect with Adrian, to understand this part of his life. It wasn't everything, but it was something. It was progress. Adrian's mother arrived with his younger sister, both of them gushing over his work. His mother cried again, hugging Adrian tight. "I'm so proud of you, mijo," she said. "So incredibly proud. Thanks, Mom." His sister punched his arm. "You're kind of famous now. Does this mean I can sell your old sketchbooks on eBay?" "Absolutely not," Adrian laughed as the evening wound down. Ethan and Adrian found themselves alone in front of the portrait again. "Did you hear?" Adrian said quietly. "Someone bought it." Ethan's heart sank. "Oh, I was hoping I could keep it." "The buyer wants to remain anonymous," Adrian continued, a smile playing at his lips. "But they paid asking price immediately." "Really strange. Very strange," Ethan agreed. Even though they both knew exactly who had bought it, Adrian had sold it to Ethan that morning. Privately, before the show even opened. It was hanging in their room by the end of the week. The rest of sophomore year and into junior year brought a comfortable rhythm. They grew together, learning how to navigate a long-term relationship while still maintaining their individual identities. Adrian continued creating art, selling pieces through the gallery, and building a reputation. Ethan excelled in his computer science program, landing a prestigious internship for the summer. But it wasn't always easy. They had their first real fight in March of their junior year. Over something stupid, Adrian had forgotten they had plans because he was absorbed in a painting. And Ethan had snapped at him out of frustration. "I'm not a mind reader," Adrian said, his voice rising. "If you were upset, you should have said something earlier instead of letting it build up. Shouldn't have to. We made plans 3 days ago, and I forgot. I'm sorry, but I lose track of time when I'm working. You know this about me. So I'm just supposed to accept that I'm less important than your paintings?" Adrian's face went pale. "That's not fair, isn't it? Because that's what it feels like." They didn't talk for the rest of the day, both too angry and hurt. Ethan went to the library. Adrian stayed in the room. And the distance between them felt enormous, even though they shared the same space. That night, Ethan came back to find Adrian sitting on their bed. The painting he'd been working on abandoned. "I'm sorry," Adrian said immediately. "You're right. I get so focused on my work that I forget everything else, and that's not okay. You're not less important than my art. You're the most important thing in my life." Ethan sat beside him. "I'm sorry too. I knew you were working on something important. I should have reminded you about our plans instead of expecting you to remember." "We both messed up," Adrian said. "Yeah," Ethan took his hand. "I don't like fighting with you. I hate it. It makes me feel sick, so we agree to communicate better. To say something before it becomes a big thing." "Agreed," Adrian said, then pulled Ethan into a kiss. "I love you. Even when I'm being an idiot." "I love you too." Even when you're being an idiot, they learned from that fight. Learn to talk about small frustrations before they became big ones. Learn to respect each other's needs and boundaries. Learn that loving someone didn't mean never being angry with them. It meant working through the anger together. Senior year arrived with the weight of the future pressing down. Ethan was applying to graduate programs and jobs. Adrian was preparing for his senior art exhibition, and they were both trying to figure out what came next. What if we end up in different cities? Ethan asked one night in October. They were lying in bed, limbs tangled together, unable to sleep. "We'll figure it out," Adrian said. But Ethan heard the uncertainty in his voice. "I don't want to lose you. I can't imagine my life without you in it. You're not going to lose me. We've made it this far. We'll make it through whatever comes next. Promise?" "Promise," Adrian said, sealing it with a kiss. But the worry lingered. Ethan applied to graduate programs in 5 different cities, secretly hoping one of them would be near wherever Adrian ended up. Adrian was applying to art residencies and gallery positions, his options even more scattered. In December, Ethan got his first acceptance at a top-tier program in Seattle. It was everything he'd worked for, a dream opportunity. But Seattle was 3,000 miles from New York, where Adrian had an interview for a gallery position. "You have to take it," Adrian said when Ethan told him. "This is your dream." "You're my dream," Ethan said. "Seattle doesn't matter if you're not there." "Ethan, I mean it. I'll turn it down." "I'll wait. Apply again next year to places closer to wherever you end up." Adrian cupped Ethan's face in his hands. "You're not turning down Seattle for me." I won't let you resent me in 5 years for giving up your dreams. I could never resent you. You say that now? But dreams matter, Ethan. Your dreams matter. We'll find a way to make it work whatever happens. Adrian's senior exhibition was in February, and it was his biggest show yet. The theme was growth pieces that chronicled his journey from freshman year to now. From hiding who he was to living openly, from uncertainty to confidence. The centerpiece was a large triptych. The first panel showed 2 figures in a small room, separated, both reaching toward each other, but not quite touching. The second panel showed the same figures closer, hands clasped. The third showed them intertwined, inseparable, surrounded by light. "It's us," Ethan said, standing in front of it. "It's us," Adrian confirmed, coming to stand beside him. "Our story? From roommates to soulmates. Love it. I love you. I love you too. More than I thought it was possible to love anyone. Exhibition was a massive success. Art collectors, gallery owners, even a few journalists came to see Adrian's work. By the end of the night, he had 3 job offers and 2 residency invitations. One of the offers was in Seattle. It's a smaller gallery, Adrian said later, looking at the offer letter. Not as prestigious as the New York position, but it's in Seattle. Which means we could be together, Ethan finished, hardly daring to hope. If you want me there. I don't want to assume Ethan kissed him, hard and desperate and full of relief. Of course I want you there. I want you everywhere I go for the rest of my life. Seattle it is. Then Adrian said, smiling against his lips. Chapter 11. Graduation and beyond. They graduated in May. Both of them crossing the stage to receive their diplomas while their families cheered. Ethan's parents and Adrian's mother and sister were all there, sitting together, celebrating their sons. After the ceremony, their families met properly for the first time. It was a little awkward. Ethan's conservative parents and Adrian's warm but protective mother, but they made it work. Because they loved their sons, and their sons loved each other. And that was enough to take care of him. Ethan's mother said to Adrian quietly, "It's always," Adrian promised. "And you." Adrian's mother said to Ethan, "Keep my boy happy. It's the easiest job in the world." Ethan said honestly. They moved to Seattle in July. Finding a tiny apartment in Capitol Hill with exposed brick walls and big windows. It was barely bigger than their dorm room had been, but it was theirs. Their first real home together. They painted the walls, hung Adrian's art, set up Ethan's computer station. They learned to cook together badly at first, then gradually better. They explored their new city, finding coffee shops and bookstores and parks. They built a life. Ethan started his graduate program. Adrian started at the gallery. They were busy, exhausted most of the time, but happy. So incredibly happy. "Remember when we were roommates?" Adrian said one night. Both of them collapsed on the couch after long days. "We're still roommates," Ethan pointed out. "You know what I mean? When we were just roommates. When we were both too scared to admit how we felt. That feels like a lifetime ago. It was only 3 years ago. Best 3 years of my life." Ethan said, "Same, but the next 3 are going to be even better. And the 3 after that? And the 3 after that. Forever," Ethan said. "Forever," Adrian agreed. Epilogue. 5 years later, the gallery opening was packed. People crowding to see Adrian Chen's first major solo exhibition. At 27, he'd already made a name for himself in the art world. But this show, titled Love in the Small Moments, was his most personal work yet. Ethan stood in front of a series of paintings, near the center of the gallery. Each one captured a moment from their relationship, their first morning run together, painted from memory. The night they finally admitted their feelings, expressions raw and vulnerable. Their first pride parade, faces pressed together, joy radiating from the canvas. Moving to Seattle, boxers stacked around them, holding each other in their new, empty apartment. But it was the final painting that made Ethan's breath catch. It showed their apartment on a random Tuesday evening. Adrian was painting at his easel, Ethan was at his laptop, but their hands were joined between them, fingers intertwined. The painting was titled Home. "Do you like it?" Adrian appeared beside him, still nervous about Ethan's reaction, even after all these years. I love it, Ethan said. I love all of it. You've gotten so much better. I had good inspiration, Adrian said, squeezing his hand. A journalist approached them, notebook in hand. Mr. Chen, the theme of your exhibition is love in the small moments. Can you tell us more about that? Adrian glanced at Ethan, smiling. People think love is supposed to be these big, dramatic moments. And sometimes it is. But mostly, love is small. It's morning coffee made just right. It's falling asleep next to someone and knowing you're safe. It's holding hands while you work because you just want to touch them. It's 3 years of living in a tiny dorm room with someone and realizing they're your entire world. So these paintings are autobiographical? Very much so. This is me and my partner, our story. And what would you say to young LGBTQ+ people who are afraid to live openly? Adrian's expression grew more serious. I'd say I understand. Being scared is natural. But hiding who you are costs you so much. It costs you joy, authenticity, love. The day I stopped hiding was the day my life really began, and it's been incredible ever since. The journalist thanked them and moved on. Adrian turned to Ethan, his eyes bright.
The day Ethan moved into room 304 of Riverside University's dormitory, he had no idea his life was about to change forever. He dragged his suitcase through the narrow hallway, his mother fussing behind him about whether he'd packed enough warm clothes. When he saw the door with his room number hanging slightly ajar, "This is it," he said. Pushing the door open, the room was small, tiny, actually with 2 beds pressed against opposite walls, 2 desks crammed beneath the windows, and barely enough space to walk between them. But what caught Ethan's attention wasn't the cramped quarters. It was the boy sitting cross-legged on the bed by the window, sketchbook balanced on his knee, completely absorbed in whatever he was drawing. He had dark, messy hair that fell into his eyes, and when he looked up, Ethan felt something shift in his chest. The boy's eyes were a striking green, bright against his tan skin, and when he smiled, it was warm and genuine. "You must be Ethan," the boy said, setting down his sketchbook and standing up. He was tall, maybe an inch taller than Ethan's own 6 feet. "I'm Adrian. Looks like we're going to be really good friends with these walls." Ethan's mother laughed at the joke, but Ethan just stood there, his hand extended in greeting, trying to figure out why his heart was beating faster than normal. Yeah, he managed. "Nice to meet you." That handshake, that simple, ordinary handshake, lasted maybe 3 seconds. But Ethan would remember the warmth of Adrian's palm, the calluses on his fingertips from holding pencils and charcoal for much longer than that. The first week was an adjustment. Ethan quickly learned that Adrian was an art major, with a habit of staying up until 2 in the morning sketching by lamplight. He learned that Adrian took his coffee black with 2 sugars, that he hummed while he worked, and that he had a laugh that could fill their small room with warmth. Adrian learned that Ethan was studying computer science, that he was obsessively organized, that he ran every morning at 6, and that he turned bright red whenever someone complimented him. "You're up early," Adrian mumbled one morning, watching through bleary eyes as Ethan laced up his running shoes. "Want to come?" Ethan asked, not expecting a yes. "Are you insane? It's 6 in the morning." Ethan grinned. "That's a no. Then, that's ask me again when the sun has been up for at least 3 hours." Adrian corrected, pulling his blanket over his head. But the next morning, when Ethan's alarm went off, Adrian was already sitting up, pulling on sweatpants. "What are you doing?" Ethan asked. "Going running, apparently," Adrian said, yawning. "Someone has to make sure you don't get hit by a car while you're half asleep." They ran along the river as the sun came up, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Adrian complained the entire first mile, but by the second, he'd fallen quiet, just running beside Ethan, their breathing falling into sync. "This isn't terrible," Adrian admitted as they walked back to cool down. "High praise," Ethan said, and Adrian shoved his shoulder playfully. That became their routine. Every morning, 6 o'clock, they'd run together, and every night, Ethan would fall asleep to the soft scratch of Adrian's pencil on paper, a sound that had become as comforting as a lullaby. Chapter 2. The shift had started small, so small that Ethan almost didn't notice it happening. 3 weeks into the semester, Ethan came back from his programming class to find Adrian sprawled on his bed, textbook open, but clearly not reading it. He was staring at the ceiling, looking troubled. "You okay?" Ethan asked, dropping his backpack. Adrian sat up. "Yeah, just family stuff. My dad called." Ethan had learned that Adrian's relationship with his father was complicated. His dad wanted him to study business, to be practical, to stop wasting time with art. Every call left Adrian quiet and withdrawn for hours afterward. Want to talk about it? Ethan offered. Not really, Adrian said. Then after a pause, want to get pizza. They ended up at Mario's, a small pizzeria off campus that became their place. They sat in the back booth, sharing a large pepperoni pizza. And Adrian finally opened up about the call. His father had threatened to cut off his tuition if he didn't switch majors. He doesn't get it, Adrian said, spinning his soda cup between his hands. Art isn't just something I do. It's who I am. When I'm drawing, I feel. I don't know, complete. That sounds stupid. It doesn't sound stupid, Ethan said firmly. It sounds like you know exactly who you are. That's rare. Adrian looked up at him, something shifting in his expression. Thanks, man, really. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, listening to Adrian's steady breathing from across the room, and tried to understand why his chest felt tight. Why he kept replaying the look on Adrian's face when he'd said thank you. Why he wanted so badly to make sure Adrian never looked sad again. It was October when Ethan realized he was in trouble. They were in the common room, supposedly studying, but Adrian kept doodling in the margins of his art history notes while Ethan tried to focus on debugging a program. A group of girls from down the hall came over, and one of them, Jessica, sat down next to Adrian. Hey, Adrian, she said, twirling her hair. A bunch of us are going to that party at the Sigma House Friday. You should come. Adrian glanced at Ethan. I don't know, you should go, Ethan said quickly, even though the thought of Adrian going to a party with Jessica made his stomach turn. I've got a project due anyway, you sure? Adrian asked. Yeah, definitely. Friday came, and Adrian got ready for the party. Ethan tried not to watch as Adrian changed into a fitted black shirt and jeans. Tried not to notice how good he looked. Tried not to feel the jealousy that burned in his chest. Okay, I'm heading out, Adrian said. Don't work too hard. After he left, Ethan sat at his desk, staring at his computer screen, not seeing any of the code. His project was actually finished, had been finished for 2 days. He'd lied because he couldn't stand the thought of watching Adrian flirt with Jessica all night. That's when it hit him. The realization that made his hands go cold and his breath catch. He had feelings for Adrian. Real deep, terrifying feelings. Ethan had known he was gay since high school, but he'd never told anyone. He dated a girl his senior year to keep his parents from asking questions. Had never acted on his feelings. Had convinced himself he could just not deal with it. But this Adrian, this was different. This wasn't just attraction. This was the kind of feeling that kept him up at night. That made his heart race every time Adrian smiled at him. That made their tiny shared room feel like the center of his entire world. And it was the worst possible situation. Adrian was his roommate, his best friend, probably straight, and definitely not interested. Adrian came back around midnight, clearly not drunk but a little buzzed. How was it? Ethan asked, not looking up from his book. Boring, Adrian said, flopping onto his bed. Left early. Jessica kept trying to get me to dance. And you know I don't dance. Yeah, Ethan said, relief flooding through him, even though he hated himself for feeling it. Should have just stayed here, Adrian continued. Would have been more fun hanging out with you. Ethan's heart did something complicated in his chest. Yeah. Adrian rolled onto his side, facing Ethan. You're my favorite person to hang out with. You know that, right? Ethan couldn't speak. He just nodded, his throat tight. They stayed like that for a moment. Adrian smiling sleepily at him from across the room. Ethan trying desperately to keep his expression neutral. Then Adrian yawned and turned off his light. Night. Ethan. Night, Ethan whispered. He lay awake for hours, his secret feeling heavier than ever. Chapter 3. The distance over brought cold weather and a shift in their dynamic that Ethan couldn't quite name. He found himself pulling back, putting distance between them without meaning to. He stopped going to their morning runs as often, claiming early classes or late-night coding sessions. He spent more time at the library, buried in his laptop, avoiding the room and the dangerous feelings that lived there. Adrian noticed, of course he did. Hey, did I do something? Adrian asked one night when Ethan came back late again. What? No, why? You've just been distant lately. I feel like I barely see you anymore. Ethan's chest tightened with guilt. Just busy with classes. You know how it is, right? Adrian said. But he didn't sound convinced. The distance Ethan had created to protect his heart was hurting Adrian instead. And that was somehow worse than everything else. But he didn't know how to fix it without risking everything. Then came Thanksgiving break, and both of them stayed on campus. Ethan's parents were traveling abroad, and Adrian didn't want to go home and face his father. The campus emptied out, leaving the dorms feeling like ghost towns. Want to have Thanksgiving together? Adrian suggested on Tuesday. We could cook something in the common room kitchen. Well, attempt to cook something. Ethan knew he should say no. Knew that spending more time alone with Adrian would only make his feelings harder to ignore. But Adrian looked hopeful, and Ethan had never been able to say no to him. Sure, he said. But I'm warning you. I'm a terrible cook. How hard can a turkey be? Adrian asked. Turns out, very hard. They ended up ordering Chinese food after their attempt. They ate on Adrian's bed since his was closer to the window, passing cartons of lo mein and orange chicken back and forth, laughing about their culinary disaster. This is actually perfect, Adrian said. Better than sitting through a tense dinner with my family. Pretending everything's fine. Better than being alone, Ethan agreed. Adrian looked at him then. Really looked at him, and Ethan felt exposed under that gaze. Are you okay, really? You've been off for weeks. Ethan should have lied. Should have made up something about stress or classes or anything other than the truth. But maybe it was the empty campus, or the intimacy of their small room, or the fact that he was so tired of hiding. I'm dealing with something, he said carefully. But I'm okay. You can talk to me, about anything. The irony almost made Ethan laugh. I know, but he couldn't, because the thing he was dealing with was Adrian himself. That night, they stayed up late watching movies on Ethan's laptop, sitting side by side on Adrian's bed because it had a better angle to the desk, where the laptop was propped. At some point, Adrian fell asleep, his head dropping onto Ethan's shoulder. Ethan froze. Adrian was warm and solid against him, his breathing deep and even. Ethan knew he should move, should wake Adrian up, should do anything except sit there drinking in the feeling of Adrian this close. But he didn't. For one stolen moment, he let himself pretend this meant something more than friendship. When the movie ended, Ethan gently shifted Adrian onto the pillow and pulled a blanket over him. He was about to go to his own bed when Adrian's hand caught his wrist. Stay, Adrian mumbled. Half-asleep. Double quotes what? Stay here. The room's cold. It was a bad idea. A terrible idea. But Ethan lay down anyway, on top of the covers while Adrian was under them, putting at least that barrier between them. Adrian immediately curled into his side, seeking warmth, and Ethan stared at the ceiling, his heart pounding so loud he was sure Adrian could hear it. He didn't sleep at all that night. Just lay there. Adrian pressed against him, knowing this was the closest he'd ever get to what he really wanted. Hash. Chapter 4. The breaking point. December arrived with final exams and attention in room 304. That neither of them acknowledged but both felt. Ethan had gone back to his avoidance tactics, and Adrian had stopped trying to close the distance. They existed in polite, careful proximity, like roommates who happened to be friends instead of the best friends they'd been just months ago. Ethan hated it. Hated what he was doing. Hated himself for not being able to control his feelings. Hated that his attempt to protect their friendship was destroying, and instead, he was at the library, supposedly studying for his data structures final, when his phone buzzed with a text from Adrian. Where are you? Need to talk. Ethan's stomach dropped. Those were the words you heard before something ended. Before we need to talk about being roommates next year, or I think I should room with someone else. Library. Be back in 20. When he got to their room, Adrian was pacing. He'd clearly been running his hands through his hair because it stuck up in all directions. Hey? Ethan said carefully. What's up? Adrian spun to face him. What's going on with you? What do you mean? Don't do that. Don't pretend everything's fine when you've been avoiding me for weeks. Months, actually. Adrian's voice was frustrated. Hurt? Did I do something? Say something. Because I've been going over every conversation we've had and I can't figure out what I did wrong. You didn't do anything wrong, Ethan said quickly. Then why won't you talk to me? Why do you leave the room every time I come back? Why did you stop running with me? Why won't you even look at me anymore? Adrian, we used to be best friends. Now I feel like you can't stand to be in the same room as me. So, just tell me what I did so I can fix it. You can't fix it. The words came out louder than Ethan intended. You can't fix it because you didn't do anything wrong. I did. Adrian stared at him. What are you talking about? And there it was, the moment Ethan had been dreading and avoiding for months. The moment where everything would change. He could lie, could make up something, could protect his secret for a little longer. But he was so tired of hiding. So tired of the distance between them. I have feelings for you, Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper. Real feelings. The kind that keep me up at night. The kind that made me leave the room because being near you was too hard. That's why I've been avoiding you? Not because of anything you did, but because I couldn't handle being this close to you and pretending I didn't want more." The silence that followed was deafening. Adrian just stood there, his expression unreadable, and Ethan felt his world crumbling around him. "I'm sorry," Ethan said, backing toward the door. "I shouldn't have said anything. I can request a room change. You won't have to." "Ethan, stop." Ethan stopped, hand on the doorknob, unable to look at Adrian. "When did you realize?" Adrian asked quietly. "October. That night you went to the party with Jessica. That was months ago." "I know. And you've been dealing with this alone all this time." It wasn't a question, but Ethan nodded anyway. Adrian crossed the room in 3 strides, and suddenly he was right in front of Ethan, close enough that Ethan could see the gold flecks in his green eyes. "You idiot," Adrian said softly. Then he kissed him. Chapter 5. The truth. Ethan's brain short-circuited. Adrian's lips were soft and warm against his hand coming up to cup Ethan's jaw. And for a moment, Ethan couldn't process what was happening. Then his body caught up to his mind, and he kissed back, his hands finding Adrian's waist, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ethan couldn't form words. "I've wanted to do that since September," Adrian said, his forehead resting against Ethan's. "Since the 3rd week of school when you brought me pizza because my dad called and made me feel like shit. That's when I knew." "You what?" Adrian laughed, a little breathless. "You really thought you were the only one." "Ethan, I've been losing my mind trying to figure out if you felt the same way. When you started avoiding me, I thought you figured out how I felt and were trying to let me down easy. I thought you were straight," Ethan said, still trying to process. "I'm very much not straight." Adrian pulled back just enough to meet Ethan's eyes. "I'm bisexual. Have been since high school. You're not the only one who's been hiding something." Ethan's legs felt weak. He sat down heavily on his bed, and Adrian sat beside him. "So we've both been idiots," Ethan said. "Massive idiots," Adrian agreed. "Wasting months being miserable when we could have been doing this." He leaned in and kissed Ethan again, slower this time, deeper. Ethan's hand tangled in Adrian's hair, and Adrian made a soft sound that sent electricity through Ethan's entire body. When they broke apart again, Adrian was smiling. "You know what the worst part was?" "What?" "Every morning when we'd run together, you'd smile at me with the sunrise behind you, and I'd think about how badly I wanted to kiss you. Then we'd come back here to this tiny room, and you go shower, and I'd have to sit here and pretend I wasn't thinking about you." Ethan felt heat rise in his cheeks. "Adrian, it's true. You have no idea how hard it's been living with you, wanting you. Thinking I couldn't have you." "I know exactly how hard it's been," Ethan said. "I've been living the same nightmare." "Not a nightmare anymore," Adrian said, lacing their fingers together. They sat there for a long moment, just looking at each other, processing this new reality where they could actually have what they wanted. "What now?" Ethan asked. "Now we do all the things we've been too scared to do. We go on dates. We hold hands. We kiss whenever we want. We stop pretending we're just roommates who happen to be friends." "I don't know how to do this," Ethan admitted. "I've never been with anyone." "Not really. You're my first everything." Adrian's expression softened. "We'll figure it out together. No pressure, no rush. Just us, Ethan repeated, liking the sound of that. They ordered dinner pizza from Mario's, delivered this time, and ate it sitting on Adrian's bed, legs tangled together, unable to stop touching each other. Every few minutes, one of them would lean in for another kiss, like they were making up for lost time. "Can I ask you something?" Ethan said between bites. "Anything. When Jessica asked you to that party, and you looked at me before answering, were you trying to see if I'd stop you?" Adrian nodded. "I was hoping you'd tell me not to go, that you'd suggest we do something together instead. When you told me to go, it felt like confirmation that you didn't see me that way. I was dying inside," Ethan confessed. "I couldn't stand the thought of you going with her. I lied about having a project due." "I know. I finished that same project the week before. We're in the same class. Remember?" Ethan laughed. "God, we're terrible at this. We're learning," Adrian said. Then, more seriously, "What about your parents? Are they okay with this?" Ethan's smile faded. "They don't know about me being gay. I've never told them. Are you going to?" "I don't know. Maybe. Probably. Eventually." Ethan looked at their joined hands. "They're not horrible people, but they're traditional, conservative. I don't know how they'll react." "Hey," Adrian squeezed his hand. "Whatever you decide, whenever you decide it, I'm here."
"That was good," Ethan said, meant every word. Adrian paused, then reached into his pocket. Actually, I've been waiting for the right moment. I think this might be it. Ethan's heart started racing as Adrian pulled out a small velvet box. Adrian, I know we've talked about this, Adrian said, his voice shaking slightly. I know we agreed we weren't in a rush, but Ethan, I've known you were it for me since we were 19 years old, sharing a tiny dorm room and pretending we didn't want to kiss each other. I've loved you for 8 years. I want to love you for 80 more. He opened the box, revealing 2 simple silver bands. Marry me? Ethan couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, could only nod as tears streamed down his face. Yes, Adrian asked, needing to hear it. Yes, Ethan managed. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Adrian slipped the ring onto Ethan's finger, and Ethan did the same for him. Then they were kissing, surrounded by Adrian's art, surrounded by people celebrating love, surrounded by the life they'd built together. When they broke apart, the gallery erupted in applause. Ethan laughed, crying, holding Adrian close. I love you, he said. My roommate, my best friend, my soulmate, love you too, Adrian said. Always have, always will. Later that night, back in their apartment, bigger now, with a separate studio for Adrian and an office for Ethan, they lay in bed together, admiring their matching rings. Do you ever think about that first day? Ethan asked. When I walked into room 304 and saw you for the first time, all the time, Adrian admitted. I remember thinking you had kind eyes, and I remember being terrified of how much I wanted to know you. I remember your smile. I thought I'd never seen anything more beautiful. You were so young. You still are. Ethan pointed out. True, but we're different now. Better. We grew up together. And we'll grow old together, Ethan said, kissing him softly. I can't wait. Adrian murmured against his lips. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, rings glinting in the moonlight. 2 boys who'd shared one room and one secret, now sharing one life, one future, one love that had finally, beautifully, completely come out into the light.